All right, so nice to see everybody. Go ahead, have a seat. Cross the shins, one in front of the other. Flex your feet. Place your hands about the middle of your thigh, press down, lift the spine, chest up. Drop the shoulders away from your ears. Press your hands down again. Really firmly give some lift to the center spine of the body and take a nice deep breath in. As you do lift, and as you exhale, again, drop the shoulders. But keep the spine lifted. Let the arms relax and the eyes close. So before we go into our practice, my friends, take a moment. Reflect upon your day. Reflect upon the choices you made in your day. Don't judge them right or wrong, but just see them before you. See the big ones, right? And then for a moment, see the smaller ones. Not quite as important as, bills being paid or choices about family or big schedules. See the smaller stuff. What'd you have for lunch? Let those choices you made kind of fill in a timeline of your day. And then if you look at that whole timeline for just a moment, there's probably a lot missing. Did you inhale or exhale when you first woke up in the morning? How did you choose to get out of bed? Or how did you choose to open your car door? Or what so forth? There's a lot of things that we do out of habit, a lot of things we do out of routine. And it's efficient, and it gives a sense of comfort and normalcy. But the issue is that once habit and routine become the majority, or even just become the norm for such things, is we lose options or feeling like we can change it. When you constantly reinforce a lesson that things are just going to go the way they always have been, and you don't know where to start changing, we change in the places where we haven't thought about what we choose to do. This is important because it's in those small spaces that we reinforce lessons about ourselves and the world. And I think that one thing yoga has always offered is the idea that there is infinite option for change. Even if it's not the big ones that take up a lot of your life, because so often big choices have to be involved with other people or other projects or other parts. The smaller than that things, really can start making bigger choices. But then even smaller than that, if you want to change the big stuff and the medium stuff, you've got to change the small stuff. And awareness of what you do without thinking ultimately is one thing yoga asks us to see, so that when we make changes, we make it to all aspects. We don't just eat a little better, but if you want the whole health, you got to change about how you do even the small choices. Right? You're used to getting the big giant cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe you get a slightly smaller cup because it's just out of your norm. Because just like when we come onto the yoga mat and the teacher asks us to move our body in different ways, to put ourselves in different situations physically with our breath, where our toes, and even things like that. And if we're lucky, the teacher shows us old habits we might have, so that there's some insight about how to change. Just as the teacher does that for us on the mat, we have to do that for ourselves off the mat. So my friends, as we go through the practice today, Give yourself permission to pay attention to all parts of your body, what you're going through, but then also pay particular attention to the thing that you just want to do out of habit without awareness, so that you can make the cognitive chance to either choose to engage into it fully or change it and do something different. But nothing is done mindlessly. It is with full clarity in our choice and in our action. So the changes we make will leave no part left untouched. And we're totally aware of how our choices affect ourselves and ultimately the world around us. Bring the palms together at the chest, thumbs touching the sternum. We'll shortly 3 times and begin. Take a nice breath. Oh. Oh. Flex your feet. Oh. Bow your head. It's with the essence of yoga inside yourself. Bring your hands into your lap. Let your head rise and your eyes open. So nice to see everybody, especially those that have snuck in. We're going to continue stabilizing abdominal muscle, learning how it can help us in our poses and our movements. So you don't have if it's hot where you are and you don't have a fan on, turn it on. Get some airflow and come to a standing position, please. Yeah. Kill. Tadasana, please. Thighs together, feet together, heels touching. So from Tadasana, heels touching, calf coming in, thigh coming in, unlock the joint. Already begin to feel, just as I said in the seated moments of class, what did you do that was just without thought? How did you get into the pose? Which foot came in closer than the other? You'll say, I don't know. What did you lift your chest or did you flex your thighs first? I don't know. So the thing to ask yourself is, when you start even beginning to get into your practice, how are you engaging yourself into the pose? Because if we know from the studies of Mr. Angar and the other teachers that the sequence of poses matter, the sequence of how we get into our poses matter. Mr. Angar is very clear about this in a lot of his writings. So just even begin, I'm not going to give like a perfect form for every pose, but begin to experiment a little bit for yourself. So take a moment, make sure everything's engaged. And then as you exhale, stop flexing the thighs as much, stop engaging the abdomen, just kind of let your posture sag. And then for a moment, experiment with this. Lift your chest first, pull your shoulders down, then engage your core, then flex your thighs and push through your feet. So do it from the top down. Feel it, take a breath into it or two. Great. Now relax, let your body sag or drop in the pose. Now start from the ground up. Push your feet into the floor. Squeeze your calf together. Flex your thighs. Flex the glute. Lift the abdomen back towards the spine and lift the spine. Lift the head, then let your shoulders drop. Was there a different effect on you? Yeah. Of course there was. And you have a little more awareness about how maybe even that affects your body, but then also what was hard about either direction. Because so often it's easy to get into the idea that engaging one part of the body is there to help the other. Yes, but that will not always be true. Take both arms up, palms facing in, urdhva hastasana. Lift up against gravity rather than trying to push into the invisible back behind you. Even though your arms do lift up and go back slightly, don't worry about throwing your shoulders back. Lift everything up. Go from the ground first. Push your feet down so your quads lift. Move your abdomen back towards your spine and up to lift the lower, so you feel that flex of the lower abdominis, and lift your ribs, chest, shoulder. Work against gravity for a moment and feel the parts that are working the hardest. Your arms will talk the loudest. That's going to be true. But what other muscle can you stretch your side ribs to lift up higher to hold and stabilize the armpit? All right. Take your right hand down alongside your body. Left arm still very much high into the air. Slide your right hand towards your knee, bending laterally to the right, taking your right hand to the outer knee joint. So as you went through this, what happened in the rest of your body? Did your hips fully go out to the left? Flex the left thigh in. On the abdominal wall, did the left or right side disengage at all? Now, even though the right side is shorter, it's still flexed slightly to keep you from just dropping cutting your ribs into the abdomen. So you want to try and keep flexing that abdominal wall back towards the spine and up. So the left side gets lifted higher from the belly up over the arm, and then extend through that side body. Stretch the flesh along the rib cage over the head. So let's engage the right and left side equally now. Keep the bend. Take your right hand to your left hand. Notice how your right ribs had to lift up because you can't hang in the arm now? Yeah. Take a deep belly breath. Draw the abdomen back towards the spine and lift. You might feel like you come out of the bend a little bit, but that's fine. Use your arms and stretch the side ribs deeper to the right. So you feel that left abdominal wall flex and engage. And you hold. And you breathe. Bring your body up. Take your left hand down to the left thigh. Slide your left hand down towards the knee, exhaling as you go, keeping the abdominal flexed and the ribs lifted. Remember, if you feel tension when trying to keep the abdominal flex, do not pull your upper rib or mid rib down into the stomach. That can happen. You want to try and flex the lower abdominals to lift up that region. The broadness and lifting of the rib cage to help release the back. And teach your abdomen not to pull you down, but to pick you up. And you hold. Slide the flesh of the side body across those right ribs. So it's like your ribs are lifting your armpit's pulling on the rib, and then your biceps pulling away from the armpit. Take your left hand to your right hand, keep the bend. Try to flex both sides of the abdominal wall to move back and pick up the ribs and then extend deeper. The more your core picks you up, it might feel like you're slouching slightly, but in reality, most of the time you're going to take extra sway out of your mid back, stabilize it, and let the upper back move better. Bring your body up. Take your right hand down to your right thigh again. Good. Pull the bottom front ribs back, the bottom floating front ribs pull to the back ribs, and then flex the abdomen. Slide your right hand down to your right knee again. And feel the resistance the bend takes once you really engage the core and then go over. The resistance moves from feeling a pinch on the right side to making more of the left side of the body get extended. Not necessarily in a greater curve, but in greater height that ultimately leads to the curve. Because now your back muscle is helping hold you up instead of trying to protect one side of your spine versus the other. Take your right hand to your left hand, push the palms tight together. Bend your elbows so your hands come back behind your head. Squeeze your palms tight from the lateral bend. Lift your head up, chin up, head back. Work against the gravity effect of pushing down by pushing your head back into your forearms. And then straighten your arms, pushing the palms tighter, deeper into the lateral bend. But don't lose the core. The left side of the abdomen wants to drop out and make your back do it. Bring your body up. Take your left hand down. Right arm up. Slide your left hand down to your knee. Very good, Dagny. Hand behind the head is a very good technique. Now, once you've gone lateral, make sure those core muscles are engaged as you go across laterally. So that ascension of the right arm, if it moves across, comes from greater height to lateral movement. Bring the left palm to right palm. Bend the elbows, pulling the fingers back behind the head. Push the head back into the arms hard. Get out of this action where the neck comes forward. Move the neck back, spine back, head back, and then push the palms tighter, stretch the arms straighter, and extend outward. Are we aware? She says we're aware, says Tristan. So bring the body up, bring the arms down. Very nice. Grab a block, come onto your elbows and knees. We're going to work through a classic series of abdominis work here to help the body stabilize. So last week we did standing poses with our core. We did some laying down poses with our core. Earlier in the summer, during all this, we did seated poses with core, but now we're gonna have to do lateral and planking actions with our core too. So take your block flat onto your yoga mat and squeeze the palm of each hand into the sides of the block. So your hands are the farthest apart they could be while still touching the block. So the block is wide. Good. Lift your hips up into downward dog. Keep pushing your elbows and palms and forearms into the floor. Exhale, up you go. So just even take your first down dog, moving your chest bone towards your shin. By moving your shoulder blades into your back, your hips lift up higher from the hamstring and thigh flexing. But take a belly breath and draw your core up to your spine, even in the front side of the pelvis. So it feels like your pelvis is getting lifted slightly, so your whole spinal column can hang. So the front body muscle picks up the back. Now lean your upper body forward just barely enough to get your shoulder directly above your elbow joint, and then walk both feet back until your hips, heels, and shoulders are at the same level. So shoulder stays above elbow, hips come down, one straight line. So Tristan's got to drop her glutes more. And we hold. So just even here, flex your glute. Feel what muscles are working, right? The awareness of what we already do. Feel what's already working, even though you may not have asked it to. Continue to ask it to. Don't just quit. And then feel what's not working. Can you flex the front of your thighs to push your bones up even without lifting your butt? Can you take a belly breath and flex your core harder, even if it's just for a moment? And then push your forearms down harder into the floor to open your back. For a second, look forward, lift the head and neck away from the chest, let the chest follow. And now, that was a long pause. Don't worry, you didn't get stuck. I did that on purpose. Go to down dog. I like how 2 or 3 of you looked at the camera like, what happened? Did we lose him? All right. So that was palms squeezing the block. Turn your palms up to the ceiling so your thumbs are touching the floor and your palms are facing up, squeezing the block with the pinky side of the hand. When you're ready, lift your hips into down dog. Roll the thumbnail down. Exhale, lean forward just enough that the shoulder's above your elbow. A little further. Walk your feet back so your hips come down into the plank. And then look at your hands. How did they cup? Be aware of where the body wants to quit and re-engage as best you can. And even if you have to come down to your knees, don't just let your whole pelvis lay on the floor, but even if you're on your knee joint only, that's okay. But you're still trying to ask the body, these different sections, the quad and the core and the lateral body, to push the arm down to work. So flex your thighs and push your bones up, even though your hips do not come up. And then take a belly breath and pull your core up away from the floor and round your low back. The lifting and widening of the low back is very important. Look forward with the head. Let your chest follow your head. And then look at your arms and see how they've come up. The elbows are pushing down hard, but can you push the whole of your arm down as hard as the elbow? Exhale, down dog. Holding the muscle from the plank position, asking that front body muscle to work is very challenging, because the tendency can be we get tight. It's because our backs are tight. They're overworked. So part of that is challenging this front body stuff. And there's a whole lot of other challenges come up, right? Remember what I've talked about in the past. The language you use for yourself during this will be what you make. So already check in. Is there fear? Is there anger? Is there sadness? Is there negative language about your body or positive language? Make it what you want, right? Because awareness of what we do with ourselves is not just, do I inhale or exhale when I first get up, or what door do I open the car with, or what hand do I open the car door with? But also, how do I talk about myself or feel about myself even though I don't say it? The rest of it works. Squeeze the block with the palms so your thumbs are pointing up to the ceiling. Lean your shoulders forward, walk your feet back into the plank. Pull the belly up, pull the thighs up. Lift your head up, look out. Good. Turn your toes under, go back to down dog. Turn your palms up to the ceiling. Just try to roll the hand and arm open from the down dog position. And then lean forward, shoulder above elbow, walk your feet back into the plank, flex your glutes, flex your thighs, lift your core. Tristan is modeling taking her knees down so she can feel her thighs and abs flex better. This is perfectly appropriate. I'd rather have a more even upper body with core, arms, and legs engaged than her knees are off the floor and she's struggling and going to hit me with a brick later. Push through the arms, push through the back side of the forearm. Exhale, down dog. Lean forward, or squeeze the palm with the block, and then lean forward enough that the shoulder is above the elbow. So turn your palms into the block. But then, instead of going to plank, stay in down dog, just lean your shoulders forward. And then walk your feet as close as you can get towards your body. Up on your tiptoes. Let your shoulders widen out. Take a belly breath, suck the core up, and let your core pick your hips up higher so you can walk forward a little more. It's pretty good. Nice. Good job. Walk your feet back to down normal. Take a belly breath, pull the core muscle up, walk the feet forward again, but only letting your shoulders stay right above the elbow joint. The more you pick up from the core muscle, the better. Take a belly breath, suck the core up to the spine so your hips lift up. Start teaching your body to work with that. Even if it's for a brief second, you feel the flex in the pulse. Your arms are probably getting tired. I hear you. Come on down, exhale. Very good. Child's pose, take a moment to rest. Arms stretched out in front of you, hips back down on your heels, knees wider than your rib cage, and breathe. All right. Squeeze the palms into the block. Lift your hips up and down dog, please. Move your shoulder right above your elbow. Walk your feet back into the plank for a brief moment. Don't go down to your knees if you can. Lift your hips slightly higher than the rest of your body, and then spin both heels to the right. And so your left hand, your left elbow comes off the floor, and you can still touch the block with your hand, or you can take your left hand to your left hip. But when you spin both heels to your right, let your left hip roll on top of your right hip. Let your right ribs go on top of your left ribs on top of your right ribs. And try to keep picking your hips up. The lateral extension actions poses are never about the hips coming down to perfect alignment. You look at pictures of Mr. Engar, his butt is way up there. Because the more you push through that arm, push yourself towards your feet with your arm and flex your glutes and abs to lift upward, create extension on that upper body and also strengthen tone the right side. Take your left elbow down. Don't worry, we're going to do this a few times if you didn't get it. Roll your heels to the left. Right hand can still touch the block or go onto your right hip, whichever you like, but don't let your hips come down. Work harder to push them higher than your shoulders, or at least as high as your shoulders. Very good, Shubha. Keep that. Keep that height. The height of your hips will matter. Even if you have to have your right fingers and hand on the floor so you can push to help lift your hips, work on what it takes to lift the midsection of your body. Very good, Chaya. Good modification. Take your arms down, go to child's pose and rest for a moment. All right, squeeze the blocks. Here we go. Hips up, down dog. Hips higher than the shoulders, right? Lean forward so your shoulders just above the elbow. Walk your feet back into the plank, but keep your hips higher than your shoulders. You can be astronomically high. That's fine. Whatever it helps you to feel the flex of the core, abs, and hips, to keep that. So when you roll to the side or back, you don't let your pelvis drop. Spin both heels to the right. Take your left hand either onto the floor, the block, or your left hip. But push your glutes higher by pushing through by flexing them, and feeling the abdominal sidewalls have to flex to push upward. This puts the weight into them instead of your hip joints. Good, Chad. Decent mod. Very good, Shuba. Exhale, left arm down. Spin just all the way over. Just rotate it all the way through. Heels, hips, hips up. And if one side doesn't like to go as high as the other, that's probably the side that needs more work to stabilize the left-right side of your pelvis. We can say we need a strong core to support our back. You need a strong lateral body to also support it. Exhale, go to child's pose. Breathe. First time you learn it, second time you feel it, third time you do it. So when we go into it this time, kind of be aware of how you're turning your feet. Are you starting to engage the muscles you know you're going to need to keep the pose as you get into it rather than at the very last moment? Don't be a last moment person on this. Squeeze the block, down dog. Hips up. Chest bone moves towards the thigh. Exhale, stretch your body forward, shoulder above elbow, walk the feet back. Spin both heels to the left. Pick those hips up. Good, Chaya. Try to keep your hips above your shoulder. Flex those glutes. Look up at the ceiling and move your head back for a moment. Just try. So you engage the upper part of your spine to uncurl. Switch. Hips up. Both heels to the right. Pick your hips up as best you can. Push through that right side arm. You're not just leaning on that arm, but that arm is pushing away from you to engage the lateral body. Try to move your head back and look up, even for a second, and uncurl the spine and ask the core to lengthen and flex. You might fall, you might hate it. Or you might be like Dagny and just are very good and mobile. Exhale, come down. Child's pose. Okay. All feeling. Exhale, turn over onto your back. Have a block nearby. Take the block, squeeze it between your knee joints. This is the other thing, right? Squeezing the block between the knees, stretch both legs as best you can straight up into the air. As you squeeze the block with the knees, check on which leg is working more than the other, just as we've always done. Flex the glutes. Move the bottom front ribs, the bottom ribs on the front side of your rib cage towards the back, so you feel the back widen, and then lower your legs 20 degrees, roughly 20 to 30 degrees. So they're not quite halfway, they're halfway of halfway. And feel what side wants to disengage versus the other. And use your fingertips on your abdomen if you need to kind of feel how each muscle set is flexing. Kind of don't be afraid to push a little bit, and not just in the center, but on the sides, because I find my left abdominal wall does not engage as easily or stably as my right side. And by flexing it and working it as I have for a while, it's really changed a lot of my hip and back structure. Go a little lower with the legs. Even if the knees bend a little bit, squeeze the block and go down a little lower. Exhale, go a little lower. Now, even if you need to like tilt your head up slightly, look at how one leg goes lower than the other. Ryan, there you go, buddy. I saw that. And the tendency to create that action subconsciously. Not just the challenge of the pose physically, but the challenge to stay in it mentally and not check out. Bend your knees if you must, but take both heels 1 inch off the floor. Let your glutes flex as you do this, so your legs must extend over. Exhale, stretch your legs out and rest for a moment. Take a nice breath and stretch your arms overhead, lengthening through the side body. Just like in Tadasana, squeeze the knees into the block for a moment. Flex the feet. Get your Tadasana legs on, right? And then lengthen through the legs like you're trying to push the feet into an invisible floor, and lengthen the arms away from the legs. Flex the abdominals so the core muscles help stabilize the back, and then try to stretch your upper back longer. And remember, when you stretch the upper back, stretching the upper spine, so extend through the neck and the head towards the hands. Now keep the upper body, flex the core, squeeze the block, bend your knees and pull the block up to your chest. Stretch both legs straight up into the air. And now from here, keep your left leg straight up as best you can. Without dropping the block, lower your right leg only 4 or 5 inches. So it's going to put a twist in the hips. So you're going to still squeeze the block with both legs, but the right leg's going a little lower, and the 3 or 4 inches will make a lot of different muscles flex. Go a little lower with the right leg. So there's a little difference of a twist. A little bit more. Feel the extension, the abdominis that has to work for this action. Bring your legs up. Lower your left leg down 4 or 5 inches. Go just a hair lower and challenge it. See what's in there. When you lengthen that side of the abdominal body, how much shaking there is. All right, bring your legs down, stretch them out, relax. Still have the block between your knees. Woo! I see Dagny was the smartest one in class and just left. Okay. Let's add to it. Squeeze the block between the knees, stretch the arms overhead, pick up both legs straight up into the air, squeezing the block. Lower the leg, both legs away from the body 10 to 20 degrees. You've done this before. Even if you have to bend the knees, that's perfectly all right. I'm not worried about everything staying perfectly straight or long here because we're experimenting with different abdominal muscles, pelvic alignment, things like that. Now, with your both legs about 10 to 20 degrees away from your body, so they're not straight up, you're slight angle out. Lower your right leg a few more inches lower than your left. Your hips will turn slightly when this happens. That doesn't mean your left hip comes way out to the side. The right hip moves away from the body a little bit further than the left. So you can feel that top of your right pelvis draw away from your abdominal wall. Makes it flex harder. Bring your right leg back up to equal to your left. Both legs are still 10 to 20 degrees. Lower your left leg a few more inches. This is very similar to standing lateral bend, except with the 90 degree-ish, right about 80 degree fold we're having right now in the hips. It's going to ask a lot of the muscle that's from your core to your back to stretch, flex, and work. Bring the legs up. Bend your knees, put both feet flat to the floor. Take the block out from between your knees and place it between your ankles and feet. Okay with this? Squeeze the block between your feet. Between the knees, it's easier to access the muscle of the thigh and core. Between the feet, you're going to have to work a little harder. As you squeeze the feet into the block, just kind of start to experiment and feel when you squeeze the feet into the block, how does it change the flexion of the leg? Do your calves flex more or less? Do your thighs actually want to engage at all? And you can remember, because it just happened, what the feeling was like in the thighs and in the abdominals. Try to recreate that now. Flex it as you squeeze into the block. And keeping your knees bent, pick your knees up above your hips so the block is the height of your knees above your hips. So it's a 90 degree bend. Just hold that for a moment and squeeze. From here, we could go to twists. We can do anything because from here, we're in Supta Vrikasana. We're in supine chair pose. But this is not a lazy boy kind of chair, is it? Right? Flex your thighs and pull without your hands. Try to pull your knees closer to your chest as hard as you can. So you feel the bottom backside of your glute lift up towards your knee. Flex your glute and pick it up on your own. Nope, no straight legs. Knees are still deeply bent. But pull the knee close to your chest and flex your glutes and your core and try to let your butt lift up towards your knee as best you can. Trust me, it is not easy. But what you're trying to do is learn to lift the low back from the core, because we're going to do a pose or two afterwards. It's very good for releasing a lot of this. Now, feel the angle of your legs. Your knees are not above your hips. So if you were to straighten your legs, your feet would be somewhere over your face. So just as an experiment, squeeze the block. Don't drop the block on your face, God knows. But try to straighten your legs without your knees coming away from the chest at all. Can you flex your abdominals to keep your legs deep into the pose and the hips lifted? Lower the legs down slowly. Okay. Grab a yoga strap, please. Take your yoga strap and make a loop. The question came up about how big. If you have probably about a 4-foot loop, so if you have a 10-foot strap, you'll have a couple feet of tail left. Yeah, about yo big. You're gonna lay on your back with your legs up in the air. If you want to watch Tristan for a moment, just give you all a chance to rest and to see exactly where I want the strap. You're gonna take the strap behind the calf and on top of the foot. So you hold onto it with the sides, like you can see Tristan doing here. No, it's not on the knee, it's on the calf and on the foot. Don't do it yet, wait, because there's going to show you the pose. So as you push the calf into the strap, you pull against the strap. As you push the foot up against the strap, you pull down on the strap. There's 2 actions of pull, and there's 2 actions of push. Feet push into strap, calf push into strap. Then, as you flex your thighs and push in, bend your elbows wide. She's doing great. Pull your feet over till you feel the glutes start to lift. Flex your abdominals and push the legs harder from your core muscle through your glute into the feet as you continue to go over with it any degree. Even if you're here, that's fine. You know, eventually you want more of that. Go join her. Feel that, huh? Feels good, doesn't it? Not that terrible. Just so calf across the back of the, or strap across the back of the calf, the other part up on top of the foot. Now, once you've gotten some lift, your legs are up in the air, you're moving your body, you're moving your thighs over. When you feel the glutes start to lift, fire the glute and push the buttock through the femur bone. And then take a belly breath, flex the core, and try on the core strength to pull the legs more so the arms have some help. Use your arms to help your core to help your arms. Experiment trying to get the 2 to work together. But your butt will come high up into the air. This is not a pose where you totally fold up. The human spine was not meant to stay perfectly straight. Now, as best you can, keep the legs engaged in this way. And can you flex the core, flex the hamstring to do it on a little bit more on its own? So your arms let go a little bit, but keep trying to extend your legs, lift your glutes. Nice. And you start kind of testing the waters of your core's ability to help you fold rather than help push you out of it. Ready for the next part? Of course, there's the next part. Take a nice breath, lift your head towards your shin bone. Pull your chest towards your shin bone. So now the upper abdomen must engage to start lifting your rib cage away from the floor slightly. There you go. 3, 2, 1. Exhale, relax. Good job. Bend your right knee, still laying on your back. Bend your right knee. Pick your right knee up and foot up off the floor so you can grab your right heel with your left hand. Holding onto the right heel with the left hand, pull the right heel of your foot and ankle towards the highest point on your left hip that you can bring it to. Touch it there and keep it there. And then flex the right thigh and stretch the right knee away from your body towards the left foot. It's an extension. That knee down and forward. There you go. You got it, Ryan. You're doing good. So you're still holding it with the foot, or you're holding it with the hand. The hand is actively pulling on that leg. Don't torque your knee, of course, but don't let it slide down your thigh. Extend it for a moment. Take a few breaths. Once you get about 3 or 4 nice inhales into it, switch legs. Start going back and forth on your rhythm, moving on exhales, extending on exhales. And you're going to go back and forth more than a few times. I'll tell you when to stop. Yeah. When your right hand is holding the foot, stretch your left arm overhead and lengthen through the side body. As you stretch the right leg away from you, extending. That doesn't matter. So it's whatever knee is bent, that leg's arm goes overhead. So if your left leg is straight, your right arm is overhead. If your right leg is straight, your left arm is overhead. Like trying to learn the swimmer stroke from backwards. But extend through the left leg and the right arm, and then vice versa through the right leg and then the left arm. Extend through the crown of the head, lengthening the neck, and through the base of the pelvis. Just another moment or two. Let the left thigh flex as you extend it away from the body, or the right thigh, whatever leg is bending. Good. All right. So warning, finish up whatever sides you're on so you get to equal. When you've done both sides, bend both knees, plant both feet flat to the floor. Pull both knees towards the chest, twist to your right for a moment, letting your left shoulder lay to the floor. Just letting both knees go across into a twist. Breathe deep, let your abdomen expand, your back relax, all that good stuff. Take both legs back the other way. All right, untwist. Stretch your legs out. Let your eyes close for a few moments. Let your eyes close. Come away from the roof of the mouth. And just even now, be aware of your breath. Aware of the body. And just as you explored the subtleties and the challenges in the physical body, can you continue to do so inside the breath? And can you make sure it's the kind of breath you want? Is it kind of peace that you want for yourself? And for a moment, even if that means getting a blanket or putting something under your neck, can you make it the peace and can you make it the rest that you want for you? Don't deny yourself that thing that breaks up your routine, because breaking the routine is ultimately freeing ourselves from habit. And habit is nothing but a potential chain to remove opportunities in day-to-day life. Rest, my friends, and enjoy the fruits of your yogic practice. Slowly increase the depths of your breathing. Begin to awaken the body, opening, closing the hands, pointing, flexing the feet. Bend the knees towards the body, roll to your right side, and slowly up you come. Until we meet again, Namaste.